Beloved soul, this moment did not find you by chance, and if you turn away now, you may miss something that was meant to intercept your life before it moved forward without you. What is being stirred is quiet but powerful, like truth rising before it has language, and you are sensing it because something has been set in motion long before you were aware of it. God is whispering that this connection did not begin when your eyes first met, or when names were exchanged, or when circumstances finally aligned. It began earlier, beyond timelines you can track, prepared in the unseen, where purpose is shaped before paths cross. Scripture says, "For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh." And this is not being recalled as doctrine but as memory, as something your spirit already recognizes. There is a younger soul involved, younger in years but not in depth, shaped early by pressure and loss to value what is sacred. You may have felt watched without being pursued, noticed without being approached, held in thought without being named, and that is because observation preceded revelation. While you were asking for clarity, alignment was already unfolding. While you wondered if your loneliness was seen, it was felt by someone learning how to love without rushing. This is not about age or appearance or expectation, but about readiness, meeting readiness at the precise point heaven marked. Something has been held back, not out of deception, but protection, and the truth that has lingered just beneath the surface is pressing closer now, like a confession that can no longer remain unspoken. If your chest feels warm or still as you listen, it is because your soul knows this message is touching something real, something prepared, something moving toward expression. And if a part of you wants to look away right now, that reaction is not doubt. It is recognition trying to resist what it already knows. That pause in your body is not fear, it is adjustment. Beloved, the angels are revealing something tender and unsettling at the same time. This younger soul already carries you in their heart, as if a vow has been spoken in secret, and they wrestle with it daily, questioning themselves, arguing with logic, measuring the distance in years and the weight of other people's opinions. Yet God is not consulting the crowd because divine choice has never required social approval. They did not plan to feel this deeply, and that is why it frightened them when it arrived so quickly and rooted itself so firmly. They tried to detach, to redirect their affection, to convince themselves it was temporary or misplaced. But nothing replaced you because what was planted was not emotion alone, it was assignment. They whisper your name in prayer when no one is listening, sometimes with tears they do not understand, torn between the fear of rejection and the fear of losing you without ever speaking. And so silence became their shelter, even as it slowly turned into a burden. Pause here for a breath longer than comfort allows, because what you are sensing in your chest is not imagination but recognition, the quiet weight of truth pressing gently but insistently to be acknowledged. They see what others overlook, not the surface strength or the composed confidence, but the places where you learn to survive quietly, the wounds you learn to dress with dignity. And this is why heaven trusted them with your depth when others only admired from afar. Their confession, when it comes, will shock you not because it is dramatic, but because it reaches further back than you expected, revealing how long they have carried this knowing, how often they asked God to take it away, and how the answer was always silence because heaven does not uproot what it intentionally planted. You may feel overwhelmed at first, questioning timing, questioning yourself, questioning the cost, because accepting this truth will require you to release the safety of not knowing, and not everyone is ready for what clarity demands. Once this is seen, it cannot be unseen. And now, as the unseen work reaches a turning point, let this be the shift you feel rather than force, the moment where fear loosens its grip and discernment takes the lead, because there has been jealousy around this connection, not out of malice alone, but because of what it carries, a legacy that repairs patterns, interrupts cycles, and restores what previous generations could not finish. This love was delayed not to punish you but to protect what it would produce, and the distractions you survived were substitutes meant to dull your discernment. Yet you felt the difference because your spirit recognized what was chosen. They will not pull you from purpose but press you deeper into it, standing beside you in prayer rather than competition. And this is why their youth is not immaturity but flexibility, not weakness but teachability. Once truth is spoken, movement will accelerate naturally, conversations will deepen, distance will lose its authority, and you will be seen rather than hidden, claimed rather than kept quiet, not because of ego but alignment. The age difference will fade in significance when purpose becomes visible, and what once invited questioning will later stir envy because of the peace it carries. The confession they are holding is simple and weighty at once. They loved you longer than you realized, chose you before you were aware of being chosen, and when they finally speak it aloud, you will understand why your heart was guarded so carefully until now, because this is not chaotic love, but steady, sacred, and timed. If this is true, then something in your life cannot stay the same. And that is why this moment feels heavier than comfort, because comfort was never meant to be the proof. Resistance may try to rise in your thoughts, rehearsing old fears and imagined outcomes, but God has not given you a spirit of fear, only power, love, and a sound mind. And you will know this is from Him, because when truth arrives, it will not bring panic but peace. The angels are revealing that the difference in years between you was never an error, but a deliberate design, because what one of you carries as fresh sight, the other holds as seasoned understanding, and together it creates a balance that steadies rather than drains, a union meant to restore what life once depleted instead of reopening old wounds. Heaven says this bond will feel like relief to your nervous system, not another battlefield for your heart, and when it begins to surface, people around you will quietly admit they sensed it long before words were spoken, noticing how conversations softened, how laughter slowed, how the atmosphere shifted whenever your energies crossed, because nothing that matters escapes the attention of the unseen. Let yourself breathe into this moment slowly, because the peace you feel when you think of them is not imagination, but alignment, settling into place after a long season of internal noise and unanswered questions. The timing itself carries meaning, with truth beginning to surface before structure locks in, clarity arriving before commitment fully takes shape, and the signs you've already been noticing: patterns, dreams. A calm certainty that arrives without explanation are not meant to rush you, but to reassure you that something real is moving beneath the surface. This person was sent to love you with gentleness because you survived love that demanded endurance instead of offering safety. And heaven says, Tenderness is not a reward you must earn anymore, but a restoration you are finally allowed to receive. A name spoken over you in the spiritual realm that redefines how you are seen and treated. And here is where the movement deepens, not outwardly but inwardly, as distractions begin to fall away, priorities narrow, and your spirit recognizes that you are stepping onto a quieter path where clarity sharpens and unnecessary noise loses its power. The pull they feel toward you is not curiosity or desire, but calling, a recognition of purpose before romance, which is why this connection feels sacred rather than impulsive, steady rather than consuming, and why silence has begun to cost them more than truth ever could. Something unexpected will become the catalyst, a moment that reveals how much is at stake if words remain unspoken. And when that realization lands, it will not feel dramatic but inevitable, like gravity finally asserting itself. Without realizing it, you have been preparing them as well, through the way you healed openly, spoke honestly, and kept your integrity intact, even when it would have been easier to close off. And heaven says courage grew in them, simply by watching you endure without losing your softness. Their hesitation has never been about lack of feeling, but about reverence, the fear of mishandling something precious. And the pause you may sense is not withdrawal, but gathering strength to step forward with intention rather than impulse. When they do speak, it will not be careless or rushed, because this is not fleeting affection but something being approached with counsel, discernment, and seriousness, aware that other voices may try to interfere once visibility arrives, yet only the voices aligned with peace will matter. This connection will grow quietly at first, protected by discretion, because some things deepen best when they are not immediately exposed, and your patience is about to be answered not with chaos but with clarity, as ambiguity dissolves and you finally understand where you stand. The confession, when it comes, will sound familiar to your soul, because it will echo what heaven has already been whispering to you all along, confirming that what was initiated in the unseen has reached its appointed moment to be spoken into light. Beloved, this season feels like the stillness just before two paths finally merge, the quiet inhale before a promise takes shape, and heaven wants you to know that what you are sensing is not delay but mercy, not distance but protection, because what was slowed was safeguarded until both hearts could carry the weight of truth without breaking. God is not late, and you are not waiting endlessly. You are closer than you've ever been. Closer in a way that settles your nervous system and replaces anxious questioning with a steady peace that feels unfamiliar only because chaos once felt normal. Heaven has been working quietly in the one you love, drawing them toward obedience, not through pressure but through clarity, and courage is rising in them now in a way that doesn't shout but stands firm. So when they speak, it may sound unpolished yet unmistakably true, as if honesty itself finally found a voice. And now the movement shifts inward, where truth begins to lift weight from both of you at the same time, straightening their posture and deepening your breath, because alignment always brings relief before it brings visibility. This connection will not ask you to run or withdraw to feel safe. It will invite you to stay present and brave, trusting that safety is found in obedience to what is real, rather than avoidance of what is unknown. Your prayers were heard not only in words but in emotion. In the nights you stayed faithful while feeling unseen, and heaven answered beyond the limits of what you dared to ask, choosing peace as the confirmation rather than fireworks, calm assurance instead of chaos, because covenant begins quietly before it ever announces itself. Others may notice the change in you first, not louder but softer, not more reactive but more grounded, as love settles you instead of scattering your energy, and the last resistance that once kept doubt alive is losing its footing now. Stay attentive without rushing, humble without shrinking, because when the moment arrives, your spirit will recognize it before your mind tries to analyze it, and that recognition may feel ancient, as if something long remembered is finally returning to its place. The one who loves you carries a promise they did not manufacture but were entrusted with, preserved through trials that shaped them not for status but for covenant. And right before truth is spoken, there may be a brief hesitation, a sacred pause where breath is gathered and courage crosses the threshold. When honesty emerges, it will not be fantasy but structure, not impulse but intention, because thoughts of building, stability, and growing together have already taken root in their heart. Your past heartbreak trained you to recognize peace, which is why this love will not arrive with anxiety, but with a grounded certainty that allows patience to do its perfect work. Let roots deepen before anything is displayed, because what grows in secret endures in the open, and know this as your final reassurance. You are not imagining this. You are not behind. You are not late. You are standing exactly where divine order has placed you, watching a new thing rise gently but unmistakably into view as heaven finishes what it began. Beloved, what they are carrying is not tangled or dramatic. It is tender and human, and when it finally surfaces, it will arrive without ornament or performance, spoken in clear language that doesn't hide behind symbolism, because heaven is choosing simplicity as the doorway to clarity, and truth does not need to be complicated to be powerful. This moment will feel like relief to those who have been bruised by mixed signals and emotional fog, because once the words are spoken, something subtle but firm will reset between you. Respect will deepen. Lines will be drawn gently but unmistakably, and peace will take its rightful place as the guard over your heart rather than pressure or guessing. Pause here and allow yourself to imagine the silence that follows honesty, not as emptiness, but as sacred weight, the kind that settles into the body and lets reality land without being rushed or explained away. That silence is not something to fear, because you are not being set up to fail or tested for punishment. You are being prepared to love with leadership, and leadership in love begins not with speaking but with listening, with staying present enough to hear what is real beneath the words. This connection will not pull you into control or rescue dynamics, but into accountability and mutual sharpening, where growth happens not by force but by friction that refines without wounding, and where comparison to other timelines loses its power, because this path was custom-built for your spirit alone. And now, the movement turns from revelation to embodiment, where honesty proves its endurance, love reveals its substance, and what is forming between you shows itself capable of bearing weight over time rather than burning brightly and collapsing. Practicality will begin to emerge naturally, conversations that touch values, future direction, and structure, because faith here is not floating in abstraction but walking hand in hand with wisdom. And even if anxiety tries to revisit briefly, it will no longer have authority as you learn to release control and return again to trust. You will recognize the right moments, not by intensity, but by calm certainty, a grounded knowing that does not demand testing or games, because kindness becomes the language that keeps alignment intact, and maturity learns how to hold both joy and caution without canceling either. This love will ask for agreement rather than confusion, for unity rather than emotional noise, and patience will still be present, not as delay, but as development, reminding you that clarity does not end growth, it deepens it. Watch how peace consistently follows obedience rather than perfection, how calm strength replaces old cycles of drama, and how your steadiness may even confuse those who are accustomed to chaos, but will quietly testify to a deeper transformation. The one who loves you will respect your pace, not rush your process, because respect here is not an idea, but an action that shows up again and again through presence, consistency, and shared spiritual ground. Your discernment has matured, and that growth is what qualified you for this season. So the final alignment will feel almost disarmingly simple, clear rather than theatrical, because simplicity is heaven's signature when something is real. Let fruit speak louder than announcements. Let time confirm what words begin, and trust that what is unfolding is not noisy because it is not fragile. It is steady because it is true. As this message settles into you, allow it to move gently from hearing into living, not as a task to complete, but as a quiet alignment with what has already begun beneath the surface of your days. You do not need to rearrange your entire life or search for dramatic signs. The preparation invited now is subtle and humane, showing up in how you inhabit ordinary moments. It may look like choosing to pause before reacting, letting your words come from steadiness rather than old defense, or creating small pockets of stillness where you listen inwardly without demanding answers. When your body feels tense, soften it deliberately and remind yourself that you are not late and not behind, because urgency is not the language of what is unfolding. In practical terms, this might mean tending to your environment with care, clearing one drawer, one schedule, one emotional conversation at a time, not to force change, but to make space for clarity to land without resistance. You may notice invitations to be more honest in gentle ways, saying what you mean without over-explaining, setting boundaries without apology, or allowing rest without guilt. And each of these choices becomes a quiet yes to the transformation already in motion. There is no requirement to be healed, certain, or fearless. Readiness here looks like presence, like noticing when your heart closes and choosing curiosity instead of judgment, like staying with discomfort long enough for wisdom to surface rather than rushing to fix it. If confusion arises, meet it with patience and let it teach you what matters now, because confusion is often the threshold where new understanding forms. You might feel prompted to care for your body more attentively, to sleep when tired, to nourish yourself without punishment, recognizing that your physical rhythms are part of your spiritual preparation, not separate from it. When old narratives try to pull you back into proving or earning, gently release them and return to the simple truth that what is aligning does not require your strain, only your consent. This season invites you to practice trust in small, repeatable ways, trusting that showing up honestly in today's conversations, tending faithfully to today's responsibilities, and choosing integrity in unseen moments are not mundane acts, but sacred ones. You are not being asked to perform readiness. You are being invited to live in a way that matches the peace you are learning to recognize. Some days that will feel natural, other days it will feel awkward, and both are part of the same unfolding. Let your pace be human, let your expectations soften, and allow yourself to be slightly more open than you were yesterday, knowing that this is how spiritual movement integrates into real life. Nothing is wasted here, not the pauses, not the questions, not the slow learning, because what has begun does not depend on perfection to continue, only on your willingness to stay present and aligned as it makes its way from the unseen into the everyday. What you have felt while listening was not imagined, and it was not empty. It carried weight because it touched something real within you that already knew this moment mattered. Let this be gently sealed now, knowing that every word spoken has been seen, recorded, and set in motion beyond what the eyes can perceive, already working without your effort or control. If you are still here, it is not by chance, but because something in you recognized its own reflection in this message and chose to remain present long enough to receive it. This is not a closing, but a crossing, a quiet threshold into a new movement of your life that will continue to unfold with clarity as you walk forward, one step at a time, without rushing or forcing understanding. As Scripture whispers, "He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion," and that work is already underway. Allow yourself to carry this awareness softly, letting it guide rather than pressure you, trusting that what has been set in motion will reveal itself when your heart is ready to hold it. For now, rest in the knowing that you are accompanied, that nothing shared here was overlooked, and that what comes next will meet you gently as you go. Go in peace, remain awake, and let the unfolding continue. Let us enter this prayer gently, breathing into the safety of God's presence. Faithful and loving God, we come not in fear or striving, but in recognition of what you have already begun. And we thank you for the quiet ways you have guided each listener to this moment without force or noise. We honor you for the unseen work you have carried out in the hidden places of the heart, for the long seasons where seeds of love, obedience, patience, and faithfulness were planted in silence and watered by tears no one else saw, yet you saw them all. We thank you that nothing given in sincerity was wasted, that every act of trust was received, and that even the waiting itself became holy ground. We acknowledge that you go before us and behind us, arranging what we could not plan and protecting what we could not yet understand. And we rest in the truth that what is unfolding now was prepared with intention and care. We offer you our gratitude for the clarity that is beginning to rise, for the peace that does not shout but settles, and for the steady assurance that we are not late, forgotten, or overlooked. We ask now, not for signs to prove you, but for the peace to walk in step with you, for wisdom that keeps our hearts soft and discerning, and for readiness that does not rush but remains attentive to your gentle leading. Cover each listener with calm confidence as they move into this new season, guarding their hearts from fear and their minds from confusion, anchoring them in trust as you open what has long been closed and bring light to what once felt uncertain. As your word reminds us, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. and we receive that promise not as comfort only, but as strength for the days ahead. Teach us to walk steadily, neither clinging to the past nor grasping at the future, but present with you in each step, knowing you are faithful to complete what you begin in your time and your way. We place into your hands every expectation, every unanswered question, and every hope that feels tender, trusting that you hold them more securely than we ever could. Let peace be the companion of each listener, clarity their guide, and trust their resting place as this transformation continues to unfold. And now, with grateful hearts, we thank you for this shared moment of prayer, for the reminder that no one here walks alone, and for the quiet strength that comes from knowing you are near. May each listener carry this sacred stillness with them as they go, held, guided, and gently led. And we part from this prayer in peace, remaining open, attentive, and trusting in your loving care. You do not need to remember every word spoken here, only the way your body recognized it before your mind could explain it. If your heart feels stirred after this message, you're gently invited to open that space a little wider by sharing in the comments whatever you're carrying right now, whether it's a quiet hope, a hidden ache, confusion, fear, or words you've never felt safe enough to release. There is no pressure and no judgment here. God sees every honest word, even the ones typed with trembling hands, and no prayer spoken from sincerity is ever overlooked. As you write, know that you are not alone. You are held, guided, and covered by His love. If this message resonated with you, you may share it with someone who needs comfort, and subscribe to stay connected to what continues to unfold.